There's few NFL players that I've ever seen that have had more of a mixed bag of results in their career than Juju Smith-Schuster. And ultimately, his free agency is going to be a very interesting one because he's already putting out feelers in regards to what team he wants to play for. Now, when I first read this headline, I think it's about a 5-day-old headline, mind you, I kind of brushed it aside because I felt like it didn't make much sense. But after doing my research and educating me on this department, I realized why this absolutely does make sense. So before we get to the content, we are giving away $500 to a subscriber that turns on our notifications on this channel. We are almost at 500,000 subscribers, and we are giving away $500 to a follower on my Instagram page. Now that we get all that out of the way, break! The Super Bowl is around the corner and I'm in the mood to try to make some money, but I don't want to really break my bank doing it. So what better way to make some money than using my promo code Mikerophone, claiming the free $5 credit from using my promo code, and then entering in a $4 contest to potentially win $1,440 in potential prizes. So we're entering this multi-sport Super Bowl 5-time pick'em. Between the LA Rams and the Cincinnati Bengals, I get the most points if the Cincinnati Bengals win, and they are the underdog, so I do think they could pull it off. I can't see Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow losing, but I would be happy as a Rams fan if the Rams pulled it off. We got the Red Wings versus the Minnesota Wild. I'm gonna go with the Red Wings. Toronto versus Seattle. Let's go with Seattle. Chicago versus Winnipeg. Let's go with Chicago. San Jose versus Edmonton. I'm gonna go San Jose. The Pistons versus the Wizards. The Wizards stink recently, so I'm gonna go with the Pistons. The Kings versus the Nets. The Nets stink recently. I'm gonna go with the Kings. We got the Thunder versus the Knicks. The Knicks actually really stink recently, so I'll go with the Thunder. We got the Portland Trailblazers versus the Milwaukee Bucks. No way Milwaukee loses that. Toronto versus New Orleans. I think New Orleans could pull it off. They just got CJ McCollum. We got San Antonio versus Chicago. Let's go with Chicago. Denver versus Orlando. Let's go with Denver. Houston versus Utah. LA versus Golden State. So these are my picks, man. Now make sure you use my promo code Mikerophone because you can enter this contest for free and make yourself some money by doing so. Or you can just click my link in the description down below. And thank you, Bounty Sports, for the sponsorship. Mic check 1 2 1 2. What's going on, everybody? Juju Smith-Schuster is a player that I absolutely fell in love with. I mean, it's kind of interesting because the trajectory of his career is directly proportional with how popular Fortnite was as a video game. And I think that's the reason why I like him so much, because in 2018, like the masses, I was actually really into Fortnite as well. And watching him play games with Ninja and getting into that space while also just dominating on the field despite being a USC Trojan is something that I really liked. I felt like he was playing the influencer game perfectly well as well. He had a YouTube channel, he live streamed on Twitch. He was a pretty cool guy. And ultimately, as time progressed on, he did do some stuff that would rub people the wrong way, and his career kind of hit a road bump. Not to say it's a permanent road bump, but it definitely had a bit of a hiccup, and he's definitely in a stage of his career where he's dealing with some adversity. What do I mean by that? Well, statistically in 2019, he missed 4 games due to injury, and he wasn't nearly as dominant as he had been in 2018 when he made a Pro Bowl. Bear in mind that this was the year where Juju Smith-Schuster was supposed to be the face of the Pittsburgh Steelers wide receiver core. Antonio Brown just left. Juju Smith-Schuster was getting a ton of love and a ton of support from Steelers Nation, who really thought that he was up next. And on top of all of this, the Steelers were investing heavily in wide receivers. They drafted Deontay Johnson that year in hopes of prolonging Ben Roethlisberger's career. Following that year in 2020, Juju Smith-Schuster came underneath some controversy because the man started doing TikTok dances on the logos of opposing teams, and at first it was fine because the Pittsburgh Steelers started out the season on a crazy win streak, but ultimately he came under fire for all of this. Now, statistically, he wasn't nearly as dominant as he had been in years past, averaging 8.6 yards per reception as opposed to 13 yards per reception, which was a very crucial year for Juju Smith-Schuster, might I add, because this was the final season before he entered free agency. Now, ultimately, I felt like he was primed for a really good free agency, and I thought he was destined to go to a team like the Los Angeles Rams. He put out a feeler saying that he'd like to play for the LA Chargers, and I just felt like he was destined to either be in New York or be in LA. I thought he was going to get the contract that Corey Davis ended up signing with the New York Jets. Ultimately, he surprised all of us. He bet on himself for one more year, $8 million contract in return to the Pittsburgh Steelers. And unfortunately, that seemed to have been a mistake because he was only able to play in 5 games before dealing with a season-ending injury. Now he enters free agency once again. I'm assuming he has to take a lesser contract in order to sign with another team, which once he does do numbers with said team, I'm sure he will be back up into that upper echelon above average wide receiver range where he would receive a generous sum of money. Now, what team could potentially sign him? This is where it gets a little interesting. Juju Smith-Schuster actually mentioned what team he would like to sign with. Get a load of this, because when I first read this, I kind of ignored it. And again, as time progressed on, I kind of realized why this made sense. Juju Smith-Schuster said at a 7-Eleven event that he is most likely headed for free agency. On top of this, he mentioned Dak Prescott, saying he's a great quarterback. Catching balls from him in a facility like this, I wouldn't mind it. The Steelers are still working on trying to get out of the wooden locker rooms. Now, this is actually a week-old report, and again, at the time, I thought absolutely nothing of it. And then I started connecting the dots together. If you recall, a little bit earlier, Jerry Jones mentioned that he was very frustrated with Amari Cooper's lack of production. And it's understandable that he would feel such a way because Jerry Jones invested heavily into Amari Cooper. I don't think I could even emphasize how expensive Amari Cooper is. Currently, at the time that I'm making this video, Amari Cooper is the 4th highest paid wide receiver in the NFL. Only DeAndre Hopkins, Julio Jones, and Keenan Allen make more money than him. He's earning more money than the likes of Cooper Kupp, Michael Thomas, Tyreek Hill, Tyler Lockett, Mike Evans, Robert Woods, Adam Thielen. You get what I'm trying to say here. So it makes a lot of sense why Jerry Jones would be frustrated with Amari Cooper's production, because when you pay a guy near DeAndre Hopkins type money, you expect near DeAndre Hopkins type of production. Now, of course, Amari Cooper's production is one of the most polarizing debates amongst Dallas Cowboys fans and amongst football fans. Some people say that Dak Prescott isn't aggressive enough and hasn't been targeting him. Others say that Amari Cooper is falling off of a cliff or Kellen Moore doesn't know how to utilize him. My personal opinion is I honestly thought that the Cowboys had so many offensive weapons in the beginning of the year that it made sense that he wasn't being targeted as much, but as the year progressed on, I do have to agree with most fans that say that Dak Prescott was fairly conservative in his quarterbacking. But the thing is, Amari Cooper is still averaging more yards per reception than he did last year. He just hasn't been targeted as much, and he started in 2 less games. So what is the link between Juju Smith-Schuster and Amari Cooper? Well, the Dallas Cowboys have the 3rd worst cap situation in the entire NFL. Only the New Orleans Saints and Green Bay Packers are worse than them. And to be fair, the Packers are significantly worse than them. They're like $50 million over the cap, and the New Orleans Saints are $75 million over the cap, whereas the Cowboys are $21 million over the cap. So moving on from Amari Cooper would definitely help them solve this problem. Moving on from DeMarcus Lawrence, who the team has been pretty successful playing without, unfortunately, would also solve this problem. But if they were to move on from either Amari Cooper or Michael Gallup, who tore his ACL but is currently set to hit free agency, then it would make sense for them to sign Juju Smith-Schuster. There is a world where this potentially makes sense. I thought it was very random that Juju would say,
out of all teams that I really am trying to appeal towards, the Dallas Cowboys are at the top of my list.
I personally thought that he would try to find his way back in the Los Angeles area, but if you saw what Los Angeles has been doing with their wide receivers, first of all, they're loaded at the wide receiver position. I'm talking about the Rams. They have Cooper Kupp, Odell Beckham Jr., Robert Woods when he comes back from an injury, and you saw what they did with Deshaun Jackson, although he doesn't occupy the same role as Juju Smith-Schuster, so you could definitely write that off. Ultimately, do I think this is plausible? Well, I give it like a 20% chance of happening. It depends on whether the Dallas Cowboys move on from Amari Cooper or not. So let me know in the comment section down below what you guys think about all this, man. I thought it was personally really interesting, which is why I made a video on it the moment it made sense to me. Aside from that, I'm your boy Mike. I'm dropping our mic until our next upload.